The 22nd of December, 1947, Kraków, Poland. The Supreme National Tribunal announces verdicts in a trial, which is watched by the whole world and sheds light on the enormity of the crimes committed at Auschwitz and during the camp's final evacuation. The trial involves 40 former Auschwitz staff members who are accused of actively participating in the mass murder, persecution, and brutal treatment of prisoners, primarily targeting Jews, Roma people, and others. The testimonies of the survivors provide first-hand accounts of the horrors endured by prisoners at Auschwitz, documenting the systematic nature of the genocide and the conditions in the camp. One of the defendants responsible for these atrocities is Otto Lätsch. Otto Arthur Lätsch was born on the 26th of November 1905 in Lichtenberg, then part of the German Empire. By the early 1930s, as a young adult, Lätsch witnessed his country facing a harsh reality. From 1930 to 1933, the global economic depression had ravaged Germany, leaving millions without work. Widespread unemployment, combined with the national humiliation after World War I, fueled public discontent. Many Germans viewed the parliamentary government as weak and ineffective in addressing the crisis. The economic misery, fear of a worsening future, and frustration with the government's failure created a fertile ground for Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party's rise. The Nazis promised to restore German cultural values, overturn the Treaty of Versailles, counter the perceived communist threat, provide employment, and return Germany to its rightful position as a global power. Otto Lätsch was among the millions who believed Hitler was Germany's only hope, and in December 1931, he joined the Nazi Party. Just over a year later, on the 30th of January 1933, Adolf Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany by President Paul von Hindenburg. With Hitler's rise to power, the Nazi regime quickly tightened its grip on the country, setting the stage for increased militarization and territorial expansion. This aggressive approach culminated on the 1st of September 1939, when Germany invaded Poland, sparking the beginning of the Second World War. After the invasion, Lätsch was drafted into the German army, and in July 1940, he joined the Waffen-SS, the military branch of the SS, and reached the rank of Unterscharführer, which was equivalent to sergeant. In late 1942 or early 1943, he was transferred to German-occupied Poland, where he served as a block leader at Monowitz-Buna, a subcamp of Auschwitz concentration camp, to which all the industrial subcamps in the Auschwitz complex were subordinated. From 1943, he was moved to the Auschwitz main camp, where he served as a leader in Block 11, notoriously known as the Death Block for its brutal interrogation and torture of prisoners. In his role, he was responsible for executions at the Death Wall, located between Block 10 and 11, where thousands of prisoners were executed by the Nazis. From June to October 1944, Lätsch was the camp leader of Gleiwitz IV, one of the more than 40 camps and subcamps that made up the Auschwitz concentration camp complex. In October 1944, due to a demotion, he was forced to leave his position as camp leader, but remained at Gleiwitz IV as a report leader. During his stay at Auschwitz, Otto Lätsch was known as a savage who genuinely enjoyed beating and torturing prisoners. According to many Holocaust survivors, he appeared stupid and dull, often wearing a dumb smile, and would terrorize the inmates for no reason. Lätsch would beat and kick prisoners all over their bodies daily, often using a rubber baton. If a prisoner was lying on the ground, he would finish him off by kicking him in the face with his boot. On one occasion, in his private apartment, he kicked an electrician in the stomach for failing to immediately understand an order given to him during work. On another occasion, he was walking behind two prisoners, one of them a Polish Jew, who was pushing a cart with trash. When they were several steps outside the gate, Lätsch drew his gun and shot the Jew in the back of the head, killing him on the spot. Two people from the sick room then had to carry the corpse to a special ditch, and Lätsch hid his murder by reporting that the Jewish prisoner had tried to escape. Sometimes, Lätsch demonstrated his cruelty against the prisoners in front of his fellow SS colleagues. One night, he ordered 30 prisoners to go behind the camp, where a vehicle carrying German SS officers had gotten stuck in the mud. It was difficult to pull the vehicle out, as the prisoners found it hard to move around in the mud. Lätsch then started beating them viciously with a heavy stick and a shovel, to the point where some inmates showed no signs of life. Because of the spread of diseases in the camp, Lätsch ensured that the inmates under his charge were clean and tidy. On one occasion, Lätsch, while other prisoners were looking, ordered a prisoner to keep walking, and when the inmate was some distance away, Lätsch took out his gun and shot the man in the back of the head. The reason for this execution was that the prisoner had lice. One Saturday after work, he informed prisoners that the following day they would not go to work, but would instead have a roll call dedicated to cleanliness. During this roll call, Lätsch selected a person who he considered dirty, took him behind the barbed wire gate, and shot him. He then returned and asked who had shared a bed with the man he had just shot. The man's brother, unaware of what had just happened, came forward, thinking he must be as dirty as his brother. He was dragged out from the column, and Lätsch executed him as well. On a different occasion, Lätsch ordered the prisoners' heads to be shaved with a razor blade to the point they were bleeding. The following day, Lätsch stormed into the prisoners' quarters, hitting them on the head with a cane and shouting, "You dogs, your hair is too long." Lätsch's favorite activity with prisoners was organizing so-called sporting exercises, punitive drills designed to torment them to breaking point. Once, he tortured a Polish violinist to death for being too exhausted to push his wheelbarrow properly. Lätsch forced him to exercise on a barrel, and whenever he failed to do it correctly, Lätsch beat him with another barrel all over his body. After about an hour and a half of this brutal punishment, the prisoner died. On yet a different occasion, Lätsch organized 2 hours of punitive sporting exercises for about 30 inmates as punishment for telling some civilians outside the camp about what went on inside. During these exercises, each inmate received a dozen or so forceful blows with a rubber baton, reinforced with wire. Moreover, they had to do squats while holding iron bars. After 2 hours of this, a few people died and were left at the site, with a few more dying 2 days later. In total, 10 people fell victim to these brutal sporting exercises. Lätsch was also involved in the selections of prisoners for gas chambers, and those deemed unfit for work were murdered. Towards the end of World War II, as the Allies advanced and the Nazi regime began to crumble, the Nazis attempted to hide evidence of their crimes by evacuating prisoners from the camps and moving them deeper into the Reich. These forced evacuations of concentration camp prisoners became known as death marches. The prisoners who were fit for evacuation had to march over long distances in extremely harsh conditions and were brutally mistreated by the SS guards. Following explicit orders, the guards shot hundreds of prisoners who collapsed, could not keep pace, or could not disembark from the trains or ships. Thousands of prisoners died from exposure, starvation, and exhaustion. Otto Lätsch led one such death march. According to witnesses, if someone was not able to keep up, Lätsch did not hesitate to shoot the prisoners himself without any remorse, or would ask SS officers to perform the executions. On the second day of marching, those who were ill and could not walk were required to report to Lätsch, being told that they would be taken in a car. About 20 prisoners contacted him. After about 100 meters of marching in a column, shots were heard that killed these people. They were all executed following Lätsch's orders. However, not all prisoners could be evacuated from Auschwitz, and those who remained in the camp did not fare any better. There were over 50 inmates who were unfit for marching, sick, and lying in the camp's hospital. On Lätsch's order, the hospital was set on fire, with the prisoners trapped inside, being burned alive. Only 2 inmates survived by jumping from a window of the burning building and hiding among the corpses of those who were shot while trying to escape. From the 17th to the 21st of January 1945, about 56,000 prisoners of both sexes were led out of Auschwitz and its subcamps under the escort of heavily armed SS troops. On the 27th of January 1945, when the soldiers of the 60th Army of the 1st Ukrainian Front opened the gates of Auschwitz concentration camp, about 7,000 prisoners awaited liberation in the Auschwitz main camp, Birkenau, and Monowitz. Historians estimate that around 1.1 million people perished in Auschwitz during the less than 5 years of its existence. The majority, around 1 million people, were Jews. Justice finally caught up with Lätsch when he was tried at the Auschwitz Trial, which began on the 24th of November 1947 and lasted 1 month. Otto Lätsch was charged with murder and the selection of prisoners unfit for work for the gas chambers. On the 22nd of December 1947, the Polish Supreme National Tribunal in Kraków sentenced Otto Lätsch to death by hanging. Lätsch was 42 years old when he was hanged on the 24th of January 1948 in Monowitz-Buna prison in Kraków. There were no tears shed for Otto Lätsch. Thanks for watching the World History Channel. Be sure to like and subscribe, and click the bell notification icon so you don't miss our next episodes. We thank you, and we'll see you next time on the channel.